Hello, everyone. My name is Molly Jakes, and I'm going to start the Global Seafood Alliance's webinar today, an introduction to our third-party certification programs. We're happy to have everyone here today and looking forward to running through this overview. A few housekeeping items for today's webinar. The usual housekeeping items, everyone is muted as we come into the webinar. But if you've registered for this event, you will get a recording of this presentation via email after the event. If you have any questions along the way, which we hope you will, you can type those into the chat box throughout the presentation, and we will have some time at the end that we can do some question and answer. We will do our best to answer all of our questions, but if we don't get to your question, we'll be happy to connect with you separately from this webinar. So thanks again for joining us, and let's get started. So the agenda today, we are going to review GSA's mission and vision, also our organizational structure. We'll take a look at our BAP, Best Aquaculture Practices program, and also our Best Seafood Practices program. We will talk about how you can get involved, and we'll do the Q&A. So as you may be aware, at GSA, our vision is really a world that embraces the role of responsible seafood in meeting those global nutrition needs. And through our mission, we are looking to advance responsible seafood practices worldwide, and we're doing that in kind of three different ways. We're doing it through education, advocacy, and demonstration. You can see here the ways that we are delivering on our mission. We can see those three buckets that I just mentioned: education, and advocacy, and demonstration. Through the education side, we have an annual event, our Responsible Seafood Summit. We also have an online publication, the Responsible Seafood Advocate, and we have a podcast, the Aquademia podcast. In terms of advocacy, we are a membership-based organization. You may not be familiar with that, but we do have membership. We also are doing public relations and marketing, and that's not only through for our programs, our certification programs, but we are also doing general PR and marketing for the seafood industry as a whole. And then that third bucket, that demonstration, which is really where we will be focused on today, would be our two certification programs, BAP, Best Aquaculture Practices, and BSP, Best Seafood Practices. Let's take a look at the seafood supply chain and an overview of what that looks like. You are all familiar with what all the different steps of the supply chain, but thinking about the GSA certification programs, these programs and these standards have been developed through a multi-stakeholder process, while also comprehensively covering what we refer to as the pillars of responsibility. And another thing of note that's really important is that we do this throughout each step of the seafood supply chain, and that includes processing. So you can see that top line here is focused on aquaculture production, the feed, hatchery, farms, processing plants, and then that bottom line there is focused on wild seafood production. And what we are doing is really focused at the vessel and seafood processing. But you can see GSA is committed to looking at all of those parts of the supply chain. So let's take a deeper look at standards evolution and really that transparent and inclusive process that I talked about on the previous slide. And really that the multi-step standards, when you think about the development of that, it would be very simple to just draft a standard and push it out there. But for us, it's really important to do that through that multi-stakeholder process. And you can see here this flow of process where we would have a committee of technical experts who would be drafting a standard for us. So they would be have particular expertise if it was a particular farm standard, as an example. That technical group of technical experts comes together and drafts a standard. There is a 60-day public comment period where, again, that multi-stakeholder engagement is really important. We would take into into account those comments, we might incorporate them and make revisions to the standard, that draft itself. We then would take that draft and bring it into, and it would be reviewed by an independent standards oversight committee. So a separate group of individuals, multi-stakeholder individuals, would be taking a look and reviewing that draft, and ultimately will give a final approval from the Global Seafood Alliance Board of Directors. So you can see in that development of the standard, it's going through different groups with various expertise from various parts of industry, academia, governmental, NGO communities, and then we would have a one-year implementation phase when we have a new standard that gets published. So you can see we are incorporating everyone, as many groups as we can, to develop this standard because everyone's perspective is really important to that. And you can take a look here at some upcoming standards or standards that were just recently went into effect. Our salmon standard 3.0 will become mandatory actually August of this year. So that's coming down the road for us. Our seafood processing standard, the newest version 6.0, actually became mandatory in the fall, in November of last year. And then we also have our feed mill standard 4.0, which is the technical committee is in formation now. So that standard is moving along that next version. So really, what differentiates GSA certification programs from maybe others in the field? Let's keep in mind what I did talk about in the previous slide about the seafood supply chain. Our standards look at the full production chain for seafood. It's really important. There might be different issues that come up at those different steps of the chain. And so that's why we've focused on developing standards that cover all of the parts of the chain. Additionally, I referenced the 4 pillars of responsible seafood. For us, what that means is we are focused on social accountability, environmental responsibility, food safety, and animal welfare. So we incorporate those pillars into all of our standards and across all those parts of the supply chain. So you see you're getting very comprehensive coverage across those themes. Additionally, number 2, our programs are supported by over 250 retail and food service companies worldwide. They're sourcing from our programs, facilities that are certified to BAP or BSP. Also, when we look at the standards themselves, every requirement of those standards must be complied with, and facilities cannot actually achieve their certification until they have made necessary changes. And that's really important to note, that there can be things that come up during audits, but what are those producers doing to make those changes prior to getting certification? And then in this last item here, our standards are formally recognized by international third-party benchmarking organizations. So if we are thinking about our seafood processing standard, that is benchmarked by the Global Food Safety Initiative benchmark. So for food safety, our farm standards are benchmarked to the Global Sustainable Seafood Initiative, and our vessel standard is certified to the SSCI benchmark. And so Sustainable Supply Chain Initiative benchmark. We hope that you believe what we communicate to you about our programs, but also you can look to those third-party benchmarks to trust our standards. So let's dig into those pillars of responsibility. I mentioned them a little bit in the previous couple of slides. Again, these are themes that you will see throughout all of our standards and across all those parts of the supply chain. So environmental responsibility, that compliance with the standards itself, looking at habitat conservation, water quality and effluent, social accountability, making sure those producers are following best practices in human rights, labor laws, employee health and safety, food safety, the assurance that, looking at antibiotics, no banned chemicals are being used, also looking at any treatments for animals and making sure that's being done in a responsible fashion, and animal health and welfare, really looking at best practices in animal husbandry, looking into disease control, things like that. So these themes you will see throughout all of our standards, depending on those steps of the supply chain. So we'll dig in a little bit deeper on the BAP certification program. This is was our first program that we developed. It's been around the longest, so we'll dig into this in a bit more detail now. BAP has it covered. Obviously, when you're looking at the program, it's comprehensive. It is an aquaculture certification program, and it is the only program that does cover all of those steps, those key areas of the production chain. And we do that through our standards that we have at each of those steps. So you can see here, we have standards for the feed mill, for hatcheries, farms, and processing plants. Again, you are getting coverage and you are layering assurances as you layer each step of the production chain in part of this BAP program. So why BAP? What is it that is so important, and why you should choose the BAP program? Again, full production chain standards on each parts of that aquaculture production chain. We are looking at those 4 pillars of responsibility. Those clauses will be among those various themes throughout those steps. We actually don't have logo licensing fees, so you have that consumer-facing logo that is available to you, and there are no additional fees for that. Once those producers are in the program and the connectivity through the steps is there, that chain of custody, they're able to use that logo. Also, we recently had a study with GlobeScan, and where data has shown that 2/3 of consumers globally trust the BAP label. We were founded by members of the seafood industry. I've spoken about the multi-stakeholder process and also development of our standards. It is critical to have industry as part of this development and part of this. The industry is committed to the right things, and that was really where we were founded, and we're very proud that we have the support of the industry with our standards and our certification programs. We are benchmarked by international third-party organizations, and also these audits are conducted by third parties, and it's to 100% conformity. So that really means no variances and no exemptions are permitted when facilities are getting certified to our BAP standards. So now we'll talk a little bit more in depth about most of our standards here in the BAP program. We'll focus first here at that seafood processing standard. Our version 6.0, as I said, became mandatory in the fall. So SPS is how we lovingly refer to the standard here at GSA. So again, I just want to highlight for this standard, all species that are produced at that seafood plant are included in the scope of the audit. So it isn't just a portion of a particular production line that gets audited. It's everything within the walls of that seafood plant will be audited under our standard. So that's important to note. It's also the only seafood-specific processing standard in the world. So again, we have that unique experience for seafood that we can incorporate into this, and that really see that as a value. Also, we have social accountability. So there would be social clauses that are just part of the standard itself. In addition, we have an enhanced social accountability option. So through this processing standard allows plants to comply with those social compliance requirements from the market side. And again, it's focused on those various issues around social accountability, worker health and safety, forced labor, working hours, wages. Again, also highlight for the enhanced social option, there are overnight audits required, and unannounced audits are a requirement as part of that enhanced social audit process. Obviously, food safety, those HACCP-based controls, the risk-based testing and sanitation. So that is, again, it is GFSI benchmark, that Global Food Safety Initiative benchmark there for the plant. So you have that coverage. Animal welfare, humane handling, slaughter methods, clauses around that in the standard. Obviously, environmental responsibility, water quality, effluent management, and traceability. Proper record keeping, trace backs, trace forwards is really an important part of the standard and an expectation for those processing plants. So we'll move then to the next standard, our feed standard. Again, we are incorporating those clauses around food safety, social accountability, environmental, and traceability. So again, you're seeing those pillars that are baked into the standards themselves. We also require for a feed mill that all aqua feed production and processes in the mill conform to the standard, which means that 100% of that aqua feed production in a BAP certified feed mill will be certified. And this goes back to, we don't allow for just a particular line to get certified. All of the aquaculture production, the feed production for aquaculture feed is certified. Again, we also have a requirement here that 90% of marine ingredients must come from certified sources by 2028. We also require that a feed mill is demonstrating and committing to purchasing and using 100% certified or deforestation and conversion free or DCF verified soy. So we have that requirement in the standard. And again, there's the requirement around traceability systems. We need to have that accuracy and timing tracing of those feed ingredients there. And so the feed standard incorporates those traceability requirements, and that systems be in place for that finished product. If we move over to our hatchery standard 2.1, again, a reminder, everything within the walls of that hatchery operation, all those processes, and this is for both single or multi-phase operations, must conform with the standard requirements. The hatchery standard itself is applying to finfish, crustacean, and mollusk hatcheries. And it does, again, we include those 4 pillars in development of the standards and those clauses, looking at things, broodstock care, spawning practices, stocking density, even transportation, requirements around safe working conditions, fair treatment, again, the environmental side, water quality, waste management, and also requirement for hatcheries to maintain proper traceability and documentation and procedures. And a highlight here at the end for our BAP certified shrimp producers, we are moving to end eye stalk ablation by the end of 2030. So that is an important highlight that was recent in the last year. So now if we move over to our farm standards, and again, we are focused here on version 3.1, our finfish and crustacean farm standard. We do have also bivalve mollusks and salmonid standard that are separate standards, and we are always happy to dig in deeper on those separate from this webinar. But keep in mind for these farm standards, it is everything at that farm site must conform to the applicable requirements within the standard. So if you have a large farm site, everything is subject to that audit and the standard itself. We wouldn't allow you to separate a small portion of that farm to get certified. We would be looking at everything within the site. So that's just key to note. And again, you can see here this theme, those 4 pillars, the theme is coming across the social accountability that we've referenced, animal welfare, food safety, environmental, again, all of those, the issues for these 4 pillars may look a little bit different at a farm than other parts of the production chain, but that's why it's really important for us to incorporate those throughout all of our standards and all of the steps. So this slide here is just a quick snapshot of the kinds of organizations and the companies that we are working with around the world. It is by no means everyone that is in the world that's sourcing from or supporting the BAP program, but it gives you an idea of the kinds of organizations that we are working with and engaged with. We are so appreciative of our partners who have supported us and supported our programs and supported responsible seafood production around the world. And so this just gives you an idea of some of those organizations. And then just quick touching, you may be familiar with our BAP logo. We do have that consumer-facing logo here, so it can be placed on pack. You can see we have an acronym logo, as we call it, that you would typically see on the front of a package of seafood. And then we even have a multi-star logo. And again, when we think about the program, we think about those layered assurances, the 1, 2, 3, 4-star BAP certified products. That's what we are talking about with the star logo. So again, you can represent on your product that you have a full supply chain certified to the BAP program, and you can highlight that you have 4-star product as an example. But it's a great option for many of our partners to be using this logo on pack and in marketing materials. And this slide, just again, this BAP was our first program. You can see on this chart back in 2004, when we were starting to certify facilities around the world, you can see that consistent growth year over year in our program. Again, this is across all facility types, plants, farms, hatcheries, feed mills. So you can see that continued growth year over year, and even retention rate of 86%. So again, a facility may not stay in the program forever. They may have to drop out or come back in, but you can just see this commitment from the industry year over year to continue the growth of the program and continue that commitment to responsibly produce seafood. Now, this slide is a really great slide that highlights the positive impacts of our certification program. These numbers are looking at the nonconformities that were addressed last year in 2025. And what does that mean? I highlighted that when audits happen, there might be issues that come up or nonconformities that are found during the audit process. As part of our audit process and the development of our standards, we do require that all of these nonconformities be addressed and approved by those third-party certification bodies prior to the certification being issued for that facility. So you can see here in last year, across all of those audits and all the different facility types that were audited last year, we had over 7,500 nonconformities that were addressed as part of the certification process. And you can see that chart, donut chart on the left, really just starts to break out for you where the nonconformities were, what themes they were part of, whether it's food safety, environmental, social, animal welfare, or traceability. But again, this is data. We have digitized our audits dating back to 2017. We have this data. We're able to report on this data. It's actually something that when you're part of our community that you can get access to through our PRISM platform as well. But it really just helps tell the story of the positive impacts of those facilities that are in our certification programs, is that they made changes to their operations to achieve that certification. So now I'll talk a little bit more about our Best Seafood Practices certification program. It's a little bit smaller. It's obviously much newer than our BAP program, but I look forward to giving you a little more detail around this program. So our BSP program is focused on working above the water. That's really important to note. Again, it's a smaller program and we have fewer standards, but for us, there's been a lot of work that has happened in the fisheries space already. So for BSP, we're really looking to have this program provide, again, comprehensive assurances, this time focused on wild seafood, but thinking about assurances even beyond the fishery management side by focusing on above the water on fishing vessels and in the seafood processing plants. We really, at GSA, what we want to do is address the gaps that are in that wild seafood supply chain. So again, it's comprehensive. We're looking at the vessel and the processing plant side. Great work has already happened in the fisheries management side of things. We are not looking to develop and certify fisheries. That is not what we are looking to do. So GSA can focus on these other two areas, seafood processing. I obviously overviewed our seafood processing standard when I went through the BAP program, but again, you can see that coverage that you're getting in the wild sector around environmental responsibility, social, and food safety at those wild seafood processing plants. But when you look at our vessel standard, what does that cover? What pillars are we focused on on seafood vessels? Well, it's primarily that social accountability side. So that social clauses for a social standard predominantly for RFVS, but we also have clauses in the vessel standard around environmental responsibility and food safety. And again, that's all happening on vessels above the water. Really, we're looking to complement that existing fishery certification program work that's been done and fill in some of those gaps in the rest of the wild supply chain. So again, for us, it's really about the vessels here and looking at those assurances starting at the vessel. We have the responsible fishing vessel standard. We're looking, obviously, to certify high standards of operational best practices on vessels. And this standard itself was the first vessel standard to be recognized by the Sustainable Supply Chain Initiative for at-sea operations. What's happening on vessels, those assurances matter, those practices matter. And so that's why we have the fishing vessel standard and why we think it's a really great opportunity for the market to engage. A little bit more about what's in the standard itself. Obviously, we're looking to, again, think about layering those assurances for the wild production chain. The plant piece we've talked about, but then for the vessel standard itself, we're looking at verification, there's traceability, mitigation of risks, catch safety assurance, environmental oversight, global applicability. And these are all themes that will come up. These are the things that are focused on in the standard itself and those clauses, and really allows users and supporters of the standard and those producers and vessel owners to be able to highlight and show that they're doing those kinds of things on their vessels. So again, we can definitely take a deeper dive into this standard if you have questions. But again, really GSA and our BSP program is offering these assurances through our vessel program and our plant standard for the wild production chain. And I'll close in terms of BSP specifically. We also have a logo option for this program. It works a little bit differently. It does not have stars the way the BAP program has stars, but we still allow you to highlight where you have certification and the parts of the program that you are using for your wild chain. So we have a logo for processors that they can use to highlight that they are certified to BSP at the processing level. We also have one for the vessel, and we have the ability to combine those two. So when you have production from a certified vessel going into a certified plant, you can even talk about having that processor vessel logo as well. So that is available. Again, there are no extra charges for this either, but really it allows producers and for the market to highlight their commitment to responsible wild seafood production. And we'll just finish off the program data here with just some total numbers. So again, I showed you that BAP slide and that year-over-year growth dating back to 2004. But here's a quick snapshot. And these numbers are through the end of January. And it just shows you across both of our programs, all of those facilities that we have certified. So almost 550 seafood processing plants around the world and 3.7 million metric tons of finished production, well over 3,000 farms around globally and 2.6 million metric tons, over 350 hatcheries certified to our standard, over 150 feed mills, and that's about 10.2 million metric tons of certified feed. And we have 16 vessels in our program. So you can see across all of the standards and both of our programs, those facilities that we have certified around the world. So now how do we get started with BAP? How do we engage? How can you, the listener, whether you're on the market side, a retailer, food service, a producer, even an NGO or other agency, how can we get involved with GSA and with the BAP and BSP programs? There are a variety of ways that we can get engaged. If we're thinking through the lens of retail and food service organizations, thinking about these two programs, what can they offer you? They can be a great way for you to reduce risk, You can do more messaging around how you work with these programs and your supply chains are certified. We have seen in our research that we've done with Global Scan that there's an increased customer interest in responsible practices and seeing those logos and understanding what that means. We have even seen that 2/3 of consumers trust products carrying specifically the BAP logo, and that 40% are actually willing to pay more money for that. And that was data that we found through our GlobeScan research. So you can see for you, it's a great way to help tell your story of responsible seafood. Also, you can look at engaging producers. You have good relationships with your producers, you trust them, but if they are certified to the BAP and BSP programs, that's another way to have that assurance that they are doing those things all of the time. There's that benefit of really engaging with certified producers and being part of those business relationships because they're also committed to doing the right things and producing responsibly produce seafood. And additionally, marketing tools. Will work directly with you to help develop content around your seafood story. And we can do that with our logos. As I said, there's no additional fees for use of those logos. So we are able to engage with your marketing teams and help you tell that story. And on the producer side, what are the benefits of being part of our program? Again, it's that market access. You can see the slide that was a few slides back of the kinds of organizations that we are engaging with directly. We can support that development and that engagement with the market. We can connect our producer partners that are in our programs with markets, maybe new markets thinking about placing their products. We are always communicating the positive story around our certification program. So again, we can work with the producer side to help them tell their story through whether it's marketing tools and blog posts, spotlighting, featuring our certified producers. We even do lots of social media campaigns and cross-promotional work. So yes, it's really important that retailers and food service organizations are supporting our BAP and BSP programs. However, it's also really important for us to support our producer customers in that group. They are committed to doing these practices and doing the right things and be part of our programs. And so that's an important part of what we do. We are committed to working with all groups that care about responsible seafood production. So again, for a producer, being in our programs is just a great way to also just demonstrate that they're already doing the right kinds of things and you're doing it also through internationally benchmarked standards. So that's a little bit, some of the ways that we engage. It's really important to note that we are a global team at GSA. We have representatives around the world, and we are always engaging our different stakeholder groups to make connections and to collaborate and help everyone promote responsible seafood. So again, what else can you do? Well, what we hope that you will want to do, if you don't already, is actually add BAP and BSP to your responsible seafood story. We greatly appreciate our supporters that we have had through the years, going all the way back to 97 when we were founded as an organization. So we are really appreciative. We wouldn't be here today without that support. But for those who would like to do more, we'd love to hear you talk more about our programs, maybe adding them to your sourcing policies, talk about them in your seafood stories, having them go into product specifications, engaging with GSA as a member. Really, this last item is really exciting for me because I've done a lot of work in this platform area, but you can take a closer look at your supply chain. So thinking about your facilities that are certified in our BAP or BSP programs, our PRISM platform will allow our supporters and our producers to engage and look at audit data and to really better understand their supply chain. You have the ability to connect your traceability data in the platform and visualize that for you. So there's really lots of great creative ways that we can get engaged and we can support your responsible seafood story. We also have a marketing campaigns that we're working on this year, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of those other things. We'd love to talk more about, again, I referenced our PRISM platform, so I hope that we'll have some follow-up calls around what that can offer supporters. We can talk more about our GlobeScan global consumer research that we conducted recently, where we saw some of those consumer stats. We have our Seafood You Can Trust campaign this year in 2026. So if you'd like to get engaged with that campaign, reach out. We also will have GSA's Responsible Seafood Summit. Will be in Bangkok, Thailand in September this year. We really hope that we will see many of you attend the event this fall. Obviously, GSA membership, become a member of GSA and support our work for the general seafood industry, even outside of our certification programs. And you can always find us at different seafood events. We were recently at an event in Saudi Arabia this week. We have obviously the Boston, the Seafood Expo North America coming in March. We have Seafood Expo Global in April. We have various events where we attend and host booths in Asia, in Latin America. So we hope that we will see you all soon at some of these events this year. And lastly, I did mention we are a global team at GSA. Again, just as we showed that logo slide on BAP a few slides back, that's just a snapshot of the kinds of organizations we work with. This here is just a snapshot of some of our teammates. Again, everyone here at GSA is excited to support responsible seafood, and we are happy to support our different stakeholders around the world and promote seafood. So this is just a snapshot of some of our teammates here from our market development team and program integrity, also marketing, and membership. So we hope that we will hear from you soon, and we are going to segue actually into our question and answer portion. I will say we will get to as many questions as we can, but if we do not get an answer to your question, we will happily follow up after. So thank you, everyone, for listening to the webinar, and I'm going to move over into my question area. All righty, so I'm trying to find here my questions. We do have a question around smallholder farmer. I don't have necessarily the best answer, so I'm going to display this question, and I'm going to give you a general answer, and we're going to ask to follow up after. But just the question is, would BAP certification make sense to a smallholder farmer? What would a budget range for getting BAP certification for a small size farm look like? So again, this is a great question. It all depends on where in the world. When we say small, what does that mean? We have farms of all different sizes within our program. We have group model that is often seen for small farm size. So we do have some options that can be viable for small farmers. And we are also working on really focused on small farmer development and what that can look like outside of the standards that we already have. So I would definitely encourage you to circle around with us, and maybe we can set up a separate call to talk a little bit more, but it is something we are committed to. Obviously, our current standards work for various size farms today, but we recognize that there's very, very small farms around the world that would not be able to apply for current standards. And so we are working on models that would make sense for those size farms. So let's talk a little bit more about that offline, but that's a really great question. So let's see here. I'm going to display this question. How recognized is the BAP logo by consumers? Are there measurements you can share? Great question, Maddie. I did reference I think it was at 40%. I'm trying to remember my number that I shared. So we did have some numbers of how recognized it was in the marketplace, but we do have more detail on this one. So this is that GlobeScan research that I referenced that we can definitely dig in a little bit more, but very well known in the market. And my favorite part about the data is that they would be willing to even pay a little bit more for that product. And which is exciting, I think, for everyone involved. So let's see another question. I think, let's see. Oh, there's some questions I'm definitely not prepared to answer here. We're going to have to dig in. Again, we will follow up with some more answers to some more specific questions. So if we're thinking about this question here around what does the endorser process work? So you may have heard endorser spoken earlier in the webinar. And really, when we think about an endorser, we think about an organization that is supporting responsible seafood production. And obviously, as it relates to the Global Seafood Alliance, they are supporting our certification programs. So this could be any kind of organization, really. We tend to focus on the retailer food service side of things, but really we're looking for organizations who are committed to source responsible seafood production, are also committed to advancing the industry as a whole and advancing those practices. So someone who's endorsing our programs obviously is sourcing from BAP and BSP certified programs, and has them maybe part of sourcing policies or part of their seafood story. And we would welcome any kind of organization who supports our work to engage and to learn more about how we can collaborate. This is a great question around audit training. We do have an audit training program, and so we can certainly follow up with you, Luis, if you wish, to give you some more information about that. Murali, I don't know if you have anything else you would share on the training program itself, but that's a great question, and we do have that available. Go ahead, Murali.
Am I audible?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, the announcements just went live, I think yesterday sometime or today. So they are on the BAP website. The courses are spread out, March, May, September, October, depending on the group course or the full auditor course and things like that. So the complete details are available on the BAP website as of now.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to move on to another question. So Murali, you can probably stay on for this one. So this is a question here from Max. What does the non-compliance closeout process for GSA look like? Obviously, this is talking about what I had mentioned around when the audit determines that not all aspects were met, et cetera. So thinking about that process, again, let's keep in mind that the audit process and that whole piece is separate from GSA and is all managed by the certification bodies. But Murali, would you mind just noting from your experience what that might look like through our process?
Yeah, sure, Molly. It's a lengthy question, and obviously the answer would be really lengthy. So I'll just give a brief outline of how it works. So once the audit is done, the facilities would be allowed 35 calendar days to close out. Okay, there's slight confusion there sometimes, because they think they have 35 calendar days to submit evidence. No, it's 35 calendar days to close out non-conformities. Again, depending on the severity of non-conformities and the number of non-conformities, either they're allowed to send in evidence, and then the certification body auditors who audited the facility will review offline. If not, they might have to go on site to review and close those non-conformities. Again, depends on the threshold. There's a document on the BAP website referring to those thresholds. How many criticals or how many majors or how many minors and things like that. Sometimes they might end up as a re-audit, so which means they have to undergo the complete audit again after implementing those corrective actions, addressing the root causes. Yeah, hopefully I've addressed. Yeah, GSA. Yeah, it's always like you already answered this, Molly. It's always the certification body. GSA never involves in the audit process at all.
Thank you. Thanks, Murali. And again, we'll do our best to answer these questions, but if we don't catch your question or we're not able to answer, then we will definitely follow up offline. We do have, let's see here. We had a question here around around group and farms and how that would be certified and if it applies to large operations with multiple sites in a country, et cetera. High level, Murali, from a group standpoint, again, we don't have to go into the weeds, but if you could just give a quick overview of how it depends. There are certain requirements to be in a group. So I don't know if you would just do a couple highlights there would be great.
Yeah, sure, Molly. Yes, we have a group program. We have actually two. One is a cluster program, and then the other one is a group program. Under the cluster program, individual site has to be audited. So it depends. There are so many factors, like they have to be sharing the same water body, not too much distance between the individual farms within the cluster and things like that. But under the group program, not all farms are audited. There'll be a sample of the farms. There is a square root plus 1 formula within the group program. So the certification body would, if it is an initial audit, they'll just go by square root plus 1. If it is a recertification or a subsequent audit, they'll look at the previous, what farms were not audited, and how was the system, how many non-conformities, where is the risk in the group, and things like that. That's what determines how many farms will be audited, and also if there is any fallow site and things like that. Yes, the minimum is 6 and the maximum is 50 under the group program. But when I say that, the question also states that I have multiple sites in a country. There is an analysis. I need to take a long time. I need to refer to the document, things like that. There is a risk assessment which is done by the certification body. If multiple sites within a country can be put in a group, or they might have to split and have 2 groups in a country. A lot of factors here: the risk, the management within the when I say management, it's the management of the farms within that organization or company, and then how well these are being looked at. When I say looked at, I mean there has to be an internal control by the company itself of all those farms in a group, and how robust is that internal control and things like that, and also the distance, and how many days that it would take to audit all these farms in a group. So there are various considerations. There is a group document which we can go into it if you're really interested.
Thank you, Murali. I know that one's kind of a tough one to answer. There's a lot to that one. And I am seeing some other questions that are specific to how would I get started with certification? How do we apply? So I've seen some other detailed questions around standards, specifically how it would work. So we're not going to be able to tackle all the questions. So we are going to, I'm going to be closing out the webinar here in a minute, but I know there were a few more questions. So what we'll do is, as I said, we will be sharing this presentation after the webinar, but we will also look to include some links to our Best Aquaculture Practices website. So if you go online to the Global Seafood Alliance website, or the Best Aquaculture Practices certification program website, or Best Seafood Practices website, you are able to find our standards online. You can find various materials there, and you can click into our Get Certified, or you can just get connected with our different teammates who will help you down the road with either answering your questions or getting you started with the certification process. So we will follow up on any of these questions that we didn't get to today. So I'm sorry we didn't cover everything today, just a couple, but we look forward to meeting all of you soon, connecting soon, and finding ways for us to collaborate and keep supporting responsible seafood production around the world. So thank you everyone for coming, and we hope to see you soon.